Good morning, everybody. It is great to see all of you today. I don't know. Those founding fathers were brilliant, weren't they? I mean, I don't know how back in 1776 they figured out that in 2024, July 4th would fall on a Thursday and give us a supersized weekend. And because it was a great weekend, I blew stuff up. Man, we had a really good time. Hope your family did too. You know, I hate to say this. I know this doesn't sound right that a pastor should say this, but I feel like I'm hungover, you know? And the thing is, like, I didn't have any alcohol, so I kind of feel like I got cheated twice, But it was just that much of a party, and we had such a good time and just relaxing. It was just a lot of fun. We've been talking about this carry-on idea, this idea that we all walk around with a precepts, ideas, biases kind of built into our heads. We get them from a lot of different places. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. And so we started looking at the book of Proverbs because what it does is it gives us packable ideas. It gives us truth in sizes that we can actually pack away. And the book of wisdom is full of all these nice nuggets, these nice ideas, these concepts of truth that you can bring in your carry-on. And your carry-on is that luggage you take with you everywhere. It's over your head, it's under your feet, it's on the trip with you. And so we're kind of focusing this summer on truths that we can take with us and things that we can utilize, that we can have. And then when we're on our journey of life, that we can unpack it and use it and put it into our lives and it has an impact. So that's what this series has been about. And we've been talking about the value of wisdom and really just kind of looking at that concept. That wisdom is like an artisanship. We defined it this way. Wisdom is the overarching power that gives us the ability to see direction, to kind of put strategies together, that it's more of like the work of the artisan. It is fabric that is being woven into something that you wear that becomes the expression of who you are out in the world around you. It's not just data. It's not just information. It's not just ones and zeros about life, but rather it's how do we take all that and how is it woven into something that makes me a better husband, a better friend, and better next door neighbor, that makes me somebody that has strategies for life, so I can strategize about the right things about my life, so I can get them ordered the right way. And wisdom is that ability to do that, and that's what we have been talking about, packing away in our carry-on. So in this series, we've been packing a bunch of different principles, and Proverbs goes all over the place. It talks about the ant, it talks about wealth, it talks about anger, it talks about boundary walls, it talks about marriage and all kinds of different things. And today is going to take us into an area also that will speak to us from a kind of a different perspective. Today we're going to be looking at a popular proverb. It's Proverbs 31. And if you've been around church at all, this proverb is usually called the virtuous woman proverb. And you've probably heard a lot of sermons about it, but way better than what you're going to hear today. Or maybe you've gone to a women's conference and it was called Proverbs 31, becoming the woman that God created you to be, type of thing. And you were together at a conference center with a bunch of women learning about women things. And so it is, and it's usually a message that's not taught by a dude. This is usually when I would bring Stacy up or Beth Moore or somebody like that, and they would tell us what a virtuous woman was. And it's a great template for women. It really is. It really does function well in that way. But as I was thinking about it and I came across this proverb, I began to notice that all the exemplars and kind of archetypes that we tend to present in church out of the biblical narrative, which are really there, tend to be masculine. And there really is nothing wrong with that. And most of the ladies here, what you have had to go through, as well as all of us have to go through, is the ability of taking a truth as it's being represented or the example as it may be in its masculine form, and begin to kind of take it and figure out how does that apply to you as a woman. We all have to do it to some degree. We read about David, we read about Joshua, we read about Moses, we read about Daniel, we read about Paul, we read about Peter, we read about all these kind of archetypes of our faith, and we all have to kind of like break it down. We have to break it down at a culture. We got a kind of out of time period, the kind of expression that they used, and we take it all and we try to figure out what is it like for a 21st century person to take that truth and to work it into our lives. So we all have to work it through some sort of context into our own personal lives. But what I did notice is that most of the time, women tend to have to go through this conversion of assimilation a little bit more, because you have to take this David character killing Goliath, and you have to assimilate that. How does that work into my life? Because it tends to be normally expressed in the masculine. Again, there's nothing wrong with that, but that we all go through this process. So I was looking at this particular one. Then why do we all of a sudden in the church decide that this is a message for women? Why do we all of a sudden assume that, Proverbs 31, that's for the woman's breakfast? That this is what women are supposed to be? Why not be consistent with all of our way of approaching Scripture? That whether we're interpreting David or Moses or Paul, why not interpret this as a lesson for men as well? Why do we just say that this is a proverb about the stay-at-home mom? How did you even arrive that this proverb was about a stay-at-home mom? Why is it that in the church that we use this to villainize women that have careers? There's nothing in this that villainizes women with careers. So I realize it's one of those proverbs that we tend to, especially as a dude, we tend to just kind of like, oh yeah, Proverbs 31, yeah, Stacy's going to preach that one, and just kind of shuffle it off to the side. I would say, listen, guys, just as women have to almost every week of every year have had to interpret the virtues of Christ in the masculine language, that I think it's also for us, when we begin to hear the virtues of Christ in a woman, that we too are to assimilate those principles. So it's kind of a different way to look at this, but I think it's more biblically consistent that we see that this is a teaching for all people. This is not just for the housewife. This is not just for the stay-at-home. This is not just for women. This is for all persons to grow in the virtue that this particular woman displays. So we're going to see that some of the characteristics that are displayed here are absolutely amazing, and they're powerful in any person's life. We're going to see Proverbs 31 woman is that she has power, she has influence, she packs a punch. I mean, she can get it done. She is not to be underestimated, and she cannot be held back. Those are all elements that, whether you're a man or a woman here, these are all elements that need to be a part of our lives. So let me read to you this portion of the proverb, and we'll begin to pull out some things. This is going to be a multi-week thing. And the reason why something becomes multi-week is because it's like so dense with good concepts that it would be an injustice to just do a one-off with it. I'll admit, there are some scriptures I'm like, yeah, that was there. Okay, glad we got through that one. This is not one of those. This is one of the ones that's kind of like packed with a lot of richness. So let me read it to all of us. An excellent wife, who can find? For her worth is above jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. She looks for wool and flax and works with her hands in delight. She is like merchant ships. She brings her food from afar. She rises also while it is still night and gives food to her household and portions to her maidens. She considers a field and buys it. From her earnings she plants a vineyard. She girds herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She senses that her gain is good. Her lamp does not go out at night. She stretches out her hand to the distaff, and her hands grasp the spindle. She extends her hand to the poor, and she stretches out her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. She makes coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them and supplies belts to the tradesmen. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she smiles at the future. She opens her mouth in wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and bless her. Her husband also, and he praises her, saying, "Many daughters have done nobly, but you excel them all." Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her the product of her hands, and let her works praise her in the gates. This is incredible. I mean, absolutely incredible. And the interesting thing about this, as I was looking at this, is that this is a woman's description of a woman. And that's important. And I think it's important in 2024. This is a description of a woman about a woman. See, this is an oracle that's being given King Lemuel from his mother. She wrote an oracle. I mean, so that's kind of an organized ideological view of things. And she gave it to him, and he's reciting this. Matter of fact, he's not only reciting it, he's guiding his steps with what she said. And that's really important, because this is not some description emerging from a 13-year-old boy looking at a Playboy magazine. Okay? Because some of us guys here, our view of womanhood was established at the age of 13, and a lot of us have not moved off it yet. And that tends to be the view. Or maybe that's not you. This is not some hyper macho 1950s description of the little woman. You know, I was raised in that everybody had their place, and there was the little woman in the household. But rather, this is being written by a woman who has raised up her son to be king. That's a pretty powerful position. This is being written by her, and she is describing a powerful person. And the person that she describes is not this person because she's a wife. She's not this person because she has children. She is this person before she becomes that, and that's how she works it out being a wife, how she works it out having children. But this woman is this first before she becomes the man's wife. And I think that's incredible. So it's affirming the character of this woman before any title or definition of functionality other than being a woman is placed upon her. So we're getting a pretty good objective view from the perspective of scriptures, and also from God himself on the power of a woman. But it's so powerful that men can learn from it and be taught by it. So as I was reading it, I started looking at some of the verbs. I'm a verb guy. I mean, because I'm always looking for what am I supposed to do? You know, I'm kind of look like, well, let's deploy this knowledge into doing. Too many of us just gather knowledge, but we don't deploy it. So I always look at people's verbs. I always ask them, how'd you do that? And I want to hear the verbs of how they did something. And so I just kind of wrote them down for myself. She looks or surveys. She works, she brings, she rises up. 2 times that's mentioned. She gives, she considers, she buys, she girds herself, she makes herself strong, she senses, she stretches out, that is mentioned 2 times. She grasps, she extends, she makes, that's mentioned 2 times. She hopes, she smiles, she teaches, she looks well to the ways of her household. She is not idled, and she is known for excellence. Wow. This is a person who has chosen to make an impact in their life in the spaces around her. This is very, very impressive. So don't dismiss this as the definition of a good little wife. Do not dismiss this as some prescription to stay at home, and this is a stay-at-home mom. Do not dismiss this as a woman. This is excellence in a person who happens to be a woman. And that means we all can learn from it. So I'm kind of wanting to unteach so that we can learn something together. Because a lot of us, as soon as I said Proverbs 31 and you're a dude, you picked up your phone and you started looking at your fantasy football draft coming up in a month. You know, because this doesn't have anything to do with you. But this has everything to do with all of us. This is excellence in a person. This is not a proverb about defining the ceiling that you work under, the ceiling of the home or the ceiling of the office. You know, this is not making that distinction. This is just showing that whatever this woman does, under whatever ceiling she's under, she blows it away. She's impactful. She makes a difference. Not only that, she extends beyond the boundaries of any ceiling that could possibly be put over her. She's a woman and she's a person of impact. She exemplifies living beyond the ceiling. So we're going to pull out a couple of these examples, and we'll do it over the next couple weeks, but let me just pull out like 2 verses of this because they're just loaded with stuff. Proverbs 31:11 says this: "The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life." You know, one of the joys that I've experienced in relationships is the amazing encounter you have with somebody that you can trust your heart to. That you can trust your heart to. This is not everybody. You may like a lot of people. You may have a lot of friends, but you may be very guarded about who you trust your heart to. I'm talking about the spilling out of your guts. I'm talking about who you reveal what you struggle with, what's difficult, what your challenges are. And what this woman illustrated in a relationship with her husband was that her husband could trust her heart. You know, it's the people who have the dirt on you that you find out whether or not they are your friends. I mean, there's this idea. You want to be around people who will not sugarcoat your feelings, but they also will not let people kill you with it either. You know, you don't want to have people around that don't speak the truth to you, but you also want to be around somebody that once they get that truth about you, they're not going to kill you with it. And they're not only not going to kill you with it, they're not going to let anybody else kill you with it. When all of a sudden they find out that you struggle with this or with that, or you did this and you made this mistake in your life. And so one of the things that this woman is exemplary of is the ability that, hey, her husband's heart could trust in her. And so just think about, if you're married here, just think about that. Is your spouse able to trust you with their heart? You know, guys, let me ask you, does your wife trust you? Does she trust you with another woman in the room? Does she trust you with alcohol? Does she trust you with the finances? Does she trust you to raise the children or to give a good example to the children? You know, so for me, this is so important because it makes me ask the question, am I somebody that my wife can trust? You know, that's a really a big deal. Ladies, let me ask you this. Can your husband trust you? Or when he's not in the room, are you maybe backstabbing him to your girlfriends? Are you taking all your garbage to the street and letting everybody know how big of an idiot he is at sometimes in life and all the mistakes that he makes? I mean, how about friends at work when they blow it and they do something really bad and can they trust you not to cover it up, but not to propagate your mistake for everyone else to be entertained with? Man, that's a really good friend. I have been absolutely blessed as the pastor of this church to be surrounded by a group of people. You all know that I screw up all the time. But I am amazed, as long as I have been here, there has been no uprising, there has been no move to get me out of place because I can trust you with my mistakes. Now, you also trust that I will try not to make them again and that I will become what God has called me to be. But I think it's for us personally is ask yourself, am I the kind of person that other people trust with their heart? Now, we're going to continue through this, and you may be sitting here with your spouse or with a teenager or somebody, and you're saying, I sure hope they're hearing this message. You know, you may have already tapped on your husband's thigh, or you might have squeezed your wife. Please, just stop listening to this for somebody else to hear. It's about you. Are you trustworthy? Are you safe for a human to fail in front of? Are you safe for a human to struggle in front of? And so I think that's what Jesus might have meant when he said, those who live by the sword shall die by the sword. You know? And so I just love this example. This is such a beautiful commodity to have in a person's life, to be surrounded by people that you can trust your heart to. There's also another part of this verse. It talks about how he will have no lack of gain because of this wife of his, this relationship. I thought that was interesting. It doesn't say, and he will not have to be afraid of theft. See, that's because a lot of times we get into a marriage relationship or a relationship where it's kind of like, well, I'm going to steal whatever advantage that person has to offer. It's not talking about not stealing. You know, it's also not talking about, it's not talking about breaking even. That when you're in relationship with this woman, you're not just going to break even. You're not going to have one of those 50-50 marriages. You know, when you do your part, I do my part. No, it says that her husband trusts in her and he will have no lack of gain. Can you imagine having a friend and that your interactions with that friend always bring about a gain to your life? That is exactly what we're called to. There's a New Testament word that defines this. It is called the power of edification. It's the ability to be a person that builds other people up. And this is what every one of us are called to. Husband or wife, single, whatever we are, wherever we are in life, we are called to be people that bring a gain into other people. Have you ever been around, we all can identify this because we're good at critiquing, but have you ever been around somebody that just sucks the joy out of the room? You know? Are you one of the people that is entitled to take whatever the government can offer? You know, I remember it, and this is, if you had to do this, it was fine. It was out there during something happened. I don't know, it was the flood or whether it's COVID, businesses did bad, and there were these loans that you could get as a business. And if you took one of them because you needed one of them, that was great. That was awesome. I'm glad our government had the ability to give those loans and all that. And then it turned out they kind of erased the debt and indebtedness of it. But we considered one of those loans here at the church. And we decided, wait a minute, do we really need the money? And we were aware that there would probably be some free money that the government's given out. Do we really need the money? And it's like, we decided here at the church that we were not going to take the loan. And that if this church could not stay afloat because of the people in this church, then it's a church that needs to sink. We were not going to take a government loan to try to keep the church going. It sounded just the opposite of what churches were supposed to be, at least in my little mind. But a lot of us, whether it's the government or whether it's our husbands or wives, we're always just, you know, if he doesn't make you happy and laugh, you know, if she doesn't come out of the bedroom dressed ready to go, whatever it may be, whatever you've got in your mind, come on, you can smile at that one. That's okay. If all that, if we all of a sudden shut down in the relationship, you know, and I think it's beautiful that the illustration for us from this woman is that our encounter with other people, they should be gaining as a result of us. I mean, that's enough right there. because I could just look at every relationship I have and I'm like, no, I sucked the fun out of that one. I'm a jerk in that one. You know what I mean? It's like I expect that person to make me happy, you know? No, I'm supposed to be a person of gain in other people's life. The last one we'll look at is this. It says, she looks for wool and flax. You know, I looked at that, and I'm like, dude, you better read what that means. You better find out the etymology of this phrase here, because otherwise these women in the church are going to think you're an idiot. And then I realized that we're all 21st century people, that maybe a lot of the women in this church don't know what she's talking about, wool and flax, and another phrase that I'm going to show you in a second. So it's kind of like, all right, I better figure this one out. But let me read to you. She looks for wool and flax and works with her hands in delight. She is like a merchant ship. Women like being described as giant ships. She brings, a woman wrote this, okay? She brings her food from afar. She rises up while it is still night and gives food to her household and portions to her maiden. So I looked up wool and flax, and the interesting thing apparently is that wool and flax they're kind of pre-fabric references. So it's not actually like going down to Michael's and, you know, when they unfold the garment, the fabric for you, and you decide whether you're going to, you know, shape it and cut it and turn it into an outfit, whatever it is. This is pre that, which I think is really interesting. This is pre that. There's another verse that comes up later, and it says, she's stretching out her hand to the distaff, and her hands grasp the spindle. Let me ask you, raise your hand if you know what a distaff is. I gotcha. That's awesome. I thought maybe, you know, there was a pro lady, you know, wearing this here, but there isn't. A distaff, I wish I had a picture of it now. I didn't want to show a picture because I didn't want to look like a stupid dude. But it's actually like this staff, and has like a little basket on the end of it, kind of like and you would put the wool or the cotton in its raw form after it's been removed, and you put it on there, and then she would take it and she'd pull a thread of it, kind of make it, and then she would attach it to the spindle. And as she's working the spindle, she would rotate the staff. What is she doing? She's producing the thread that she's going to create with. What is this? This is the power of innovation. She's starting with almost nothing, raw, bare materials, and she's creating something. This is movement to take a hold of things that are necessary for life and crafting them into something beneficial. Wool and flax, why those two? It is possible that the reference to wool refers to winter wear and flax refers to summer wear, because out of flax you can make linen. And so what that kind of communicates to me is that this person is creating covering and necessities in all the seasons of their life. Whether they're young, they're old, whether it's winter or summer, whether she's rich or she's poor, no matter the circumstances, she's always reaching out, stretching forward to produce something good and something beneficial. Man, that's powerful. She's not awaiting for her dress to arrive. She's not waiting for that to happen. She's not afraid of starting from scratch. And I think this is the biggest point. She's not embarrassed with humble beginnings. You know, it's so easy for us to compare our houses to each other. So easy, like, oh man, you got that boat? That's a nice boat. Yeah, I got that boat, but I got it in the 30 feet longer version, you know? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I hate my boat. It's not big enough. Or maybe, you know, you go over somebody's house and it's grand and it's beautiful and all that, and it's got all the right countertops and it's got all the cool appliances that you cook with, and you know, they look cool, and that's about as much as I know about that stuff, but it's like, it's really cool. And then you go back to your house and you're just like, man, this house sucks. My life sucks, you know? And what is it about us? And I'm just kind of like bird dogging here. What is it about, You know, when we meet somebody that has a really beautiful house, big house, and all the wonderful amenities of it, well, all the parties happen there, don't they? We got a couple people that got some grand houses in the church. And everybody goes to their house for parties. Because everybody assumes, well, if you got a lot and you got good stuff, everybody goes to that house. And then, you know, if you live in a 1,500 square foot house that was built in 1954, you know, and the countertops were the same ones that were the original ones, they're, you know, like you don't entertain people because you feel small. This woman didn't feel that way at all. If all she had was woolen flax, she was going to stretch her hand out to the spindle. She was going to reach out and do the work that she needed to do, and she was not embarrassed of little to be great. See, a lot of us are like, I'd entertain more once I get a bigger house. No, you won't. You'll be the same jerk there that you are in the little house. Seriously. All those stupid home shows about bigger house. We can have our friends over. We all know you don't have friends. If you don't have friends in 1,500 square foot spaces, then if you start having friends in 3,000 square foot places, then I say there's pretense at play. I really do. This woman was like, you know, she didn't care on TikTok they were doing this and they were doing that. She didn't care about the bougie crowd. She was just like, listen, I got my wool and my flax. I'm going to get it done. So if you're sitting around thinking that you would have a better life if you had better stuff, if you had all the right fabric, this example says that's baloney. The only reason why you don't have a better marriage, the only reason why you don't have a better career, the only reason why you don't have it going on better is because maybe you're not stretching out your hand to the distaff and grasping a hold of the spindle. You know? So I thought this gal's got it going on. And I think we all can learn about it. She's like a merchant ship. God bless her. And she brings her food from afar. I like that. And food is not just chow. Food is anything that brings well-being and growth. I mean, we're working in the realm of metaphor, allegory here. So it's kind of like, this is not just, she just goes and gets her food. She goes and gets whatever is beneficial and life-giving for the people she's responsible for. Whether she's working on her work site, whether she's working at home, but the scripture's not telling us that. It's telling it that she goes and gets whatever's beneficial and brings it to those who need it. She rises while it is still night and gives food to her household and portions to her maiden. Okay, what I'm about to say is, I don't know, it's not biblical. So everybody's perked up. I got everybody's attention now. Okay, please apply this the right way. I mean, I have just removed a couple cuss words. So I'm rethinking it over and over in my head. But you know what? If your kids are getting up and getting themselves ready for school and heading out to catch the bus all by themselves and packing their lunch, get your butt out of bed. Get your butt out of bed. Well, I'm not a morning person. Yeah, I'll tell you what else you're not. The power of initiative rises up early. It wants a good morning with the kids, so what does it do? It doesn't wake up in the same slumber as the kids, the same stupefaction of the kids. It gets up early before the kids, arranges itself, composes itself, says, what kind of morning do I want the kids to have as I send them off into public school? How do I prepare myself? How do I prepare the kids? I first get up and prepare me, and then I take the initiative for a good morning. I mean, you can tell me I'm wrong. I don't think I am. It sounds like it would work. You know, instead of, you know, like, okay, honey, have a good day at work. All right. You know, my wife wouldn't think for a second to send me to work without me seeing her finished product. What's her finished product? My wife will get up. The alarm rings, and she gets up right away, and she likes to get up first. Matter of fact, she will actually say, don't get out of bed. And I'll be like, okay. And, twist my arm. It's like, no, she'll like, because what she wants to do, and you may think this is some stupid, archetype from the past, but she wants to go to the bathroom. She wants to fix herself. She doesn't do a full, makeover or make-o body thing or anything like that. But she wants to go so that when she comes out and it's time for us to get up and go have coffee together, she comes out and she's fresh. Her face is ladies, what I mean? It's like, 33% done. You know what I mean? It's kind of taking it out of scary and put it, not that I'm saying my wife is scary. Boy, I am so screwed. I don't know if I can fix this. Oh, here's how I do it. We're all scary in the morning, aren't we? But no, seriously. And she'll do that. And you say, well, she shouldn't have to do that. Nobody's told her to do it. What's she doing? She's establishing initiative for an outcome she wants. She wants to prepare my heart with remembrance of her beauty and her first place in my life. And so she's leveraging it. She's taking the wool and the flax. She's rising up early. She wants to beat me there so that, wow, And then she goes off to work. And in my mind, I have this incredible visage of this beautiful woman that I'm married to. Doesn't have to do it, but she does it because she knows that it kind of helps. Whether you're a man or a woman. Guys, it helps. When you hear your wife pull into the driveway, turn off the TV. Turn it off. Get your buttocks off the couch and go to the door. Why? Because it's early initiative to establish a desired outcome. But if you think this ship's just going to pull up in your yard and it's going to give you a great marriage, no, you got to go after it like a merchant ship. You got to bring it home. So she gets up early. It's not enough to get the good stuff, but she's also early in the initiative of the good. I think that's really important. So whether it's husband or wife or mom and dad, can I just say somebody needs to get up before the kids to establish the environment that you want the kids to experience. Otherwise, guess what it is? It's chaos. It's chaos. Just a thought. It's in the Bible. It says that she rises up early, and while it's still night, and gives food to her household and portions to her maidens. I think this is important too, is that this woman, we don't know if she works in or outside of the house. Okay? We don't know that. You could kind of argue with me if you wanted to on some of this. I think it would be a real stretch, but I want you to be clear. Whether she works outside or inside, her family doesn't have any lack. So I don't know whether a husband or wife, mom and dad, and you're both working out outside of the house, and you think that's getting it done. That is not getting it done, no matter what the gender is. When you get it done is when you end up bringing whatever you've done, and it benefits your household. So if you're losing your kids in relationship because you're working, then you might want to rethink that. If you're a hard worker, that's great, but remember, it's not about just being a doctor or just being a teacher or whatever it is. Whatever you're doing out there in your merchantship and what you're going off to get, remember to make sure its benefits are delivered to your household. That, yes, Dad, you have to travel a lot, but you better make sure that your little boy and your little girl know that you love them more than anything, that you love them more than your job. That's what this woman is doing. Yeah, she's reaching out, stretching out, doing all this stuff, and getting stuff, but I tell you what, her household, they get the first, the initiative, the early. They're the early. They're not like this kid that's getting the leftover dad,
boy, I am way in your business right now. They're not getting leftover daddy. They're getting early initiative daddy. Kids are up front. Make sure I'm doing that right. Let me go make my money, do what I got to do. But my kids aren't walking around with a sense of lack. See, so it's not an argument to whether or not it's inside or outside the house. It's whether or not your kids know that they're first, right after Jesus. Well, right after your spouse. Do they know it? Are they getting it? You know? So you say, I want to give my kids the best. Yeah, I'm here to tell you, you are your kids' best. Okay? Whether you're just working with wool and flax, I would rather, it says, better is there a house where a morsel is eaten in peace than a feast where there is strife. And that is, I got a hold of that proverb when I got married, and whenever I would get jealous of other people, I would remind me about it. It's like, no, who's winning? Eating a morsel in peace is better than a feast where there is strife. And then there was a country song that I always appealed to, Love Grows Best in a Small Home, that, you know, whenever you don't understand the scriptures, I recommend that you listen to a country song, because many a wisdom comes from a country song. And the last point is going to be this. It says that she gives to her household and then portions to her maidens. Who are these people? Who are these maidens that are around here? So I looked up portions, and portions, we're probably dealing with employees here. I will tell you, we are definitely dealing with subordinates. And we are dealing with people who are not a part of the household. See, in America, when we deal with subordinates, we can operate in a different ethic. The customer's always right, and we can just blast whoever we want. We got our little family, and we do right by our family, but after that, you know, you got people who are subservient to you. They work for you, or you're interacting in commerce with. But it says that this woman provides food for her household and portions to her maidens, meaning she pays them what she owes them. That's part of her reputation. You wanted to work for this woman because you were getting your portion. You were getting what you were supposed to get. And when I look at this, I think it's like, well, food for a household. Everybody can be kind to their household and do right by. But I think this can be interpreted as the portion that every human being needs, no matter if they are subordinate to you or not, is the portion called dignity. She's dignifying the people that work for her. You know, when way too often we'll go out to a restaurant and and all of a sudden the rice is not warm, and then we think that we can get rude and indignant because, you know, our potato, I didn't ask for that potato. I asked for mashed potatoes, and I can get indignant with you because of that. I love this lady's example. It's like, no, I take care of my family, and I also give every human being what I owe them. And what every human being is owed is dignity. Wow. Boy, in this culture, this is a crazy thing to say. I want to be this woman. You know what I'm saying? I really do. It's like, this is incredible. Just like you want to be like David, you want to be like Joshua, you want to be like Paul, you know? You want to be like Moses? Yeah. Well, I want to be like the Proverbs 31 woman. I want these characteristics to be alive in me. So we're pretty much out of time. As a church, I believe that this is not only a principle that God is telling us personally, but I also think this is the hallmarks of a good church. I believe Proverbs 31 to be an allegory of Christ, the husband, and the church, the bride of Christ. If you're not familiar with the Bible calls the church the bride of Christ. So when it comes to the relationship of God and us, when we are in the church of Christ, we are all the bride of Christ. We are all called to be the excellent wife.
So everything that I just described to you is supposed to be the actions of a good church, of this church, Crosstown. We're supposed to be looking, working, bringing, rising up, giving, considering, buying, girding ourselves, making ourselves strong, sensing, stretching out, grasping, extending, making, hoping, teaching, looking well to the ways of others, bringing gain to others, not being idle, and being known in our culture as being excellent. Being excellent. You know, the church is not supposed to be just as good as some other nonprofit or some other social program. You know, the writer said that men and women are noble, but you have excelled them all. We are to outdo everyone in the excellence of this woman. Should be the nature of our church, reaching, stretching, giving, considering others, bringing gain to all people, giving dignity to even people who don't agree with us theologically. Wow. Yeah, that's an incredible church. So whether it's at home, whether it's personally, or whether it's here, we have our example in front of us. Father, as we come now into this moment of communion, I know that a lot of us have not been exemplar in our way of life. We have not always been the best example of a husband or a wife, a man or a woman, a mother or a father. We may not be a good example of a friend. We may not even be a good example of a contrarian. But in everything, we are called to be excellent, to be good, loving, dignifying, stretching out, reaching, bringing gain. So Father God, I pray that if there's anyone here that is like me, that knows that they have had moments where they did not bring gain, or maybe there were moments when the heart of another person was not safe in their hands. Or maybe, God, at times we just laid on our bed and expected everybody else to bring us what we need. Maybe, God, we've been paralyzed by jealousy or covetousness. We're waiting for us to have a better life in order for us to actually make something good out of our lives. Maybe, God, some of us think we need 3,500 square feet or more to be hospitable. But we can be hospitable in the apartment that we live in. So, Father God, we ask that you forgive us where we have failed. And today, open up to us through the power of the Holy Spirit this incredible potential that has been displayed in this woman. God, we ask for your Holy Spirit that you will inspire us with the Rise Up Early initiative. I invite you to come and receive the body and blood of Christ, knowing that even in the hardest truth, there is always grace and mercy to grow.